Afternoon, y'all. It's UD weather here with a tropical update for Friday, August 30th, 2019. It's been a while, but the tropics are finally starting to show quite a bit of signs of life over the past few days as we have a major hurricane now threatening the east coast of Florida and maybe some areas further north as well in Hurricane Dorian. There's been a lot of talk about this recently. You can see right here the satellite image. It's a pretty organized system, and now it's a major hurricane, now Category 3, with winds of 115 miles an hour. And if you look at the infrared image right now, if it loads properly, you can see that the eye has been starting to show up, and it's been a little ragged over the last few frames, but recently it's starting to clear out, as you can see, which shows that it's going to be further intensifying, and the NHC does eventually get this up to Category 4. If we look at the NHC side right now, you can see that Dorian's moving to the west-northwest at 9 miles an hour with pressure of 970 millibars, so it's been dropping quite a bit over the last few hours or so. Located at 25 degrees north right now, it's still moving to the west-northwest as of 5 p.m. And if we look at the track right now, you can see the wind field starting to expand too. The storm in general is starting to expand recently. And if you look at the path, you can see that it's going to remain a major hurricane up all the way until landfall potentially somewhere along the east coast of Florida. This isn't certain, though. There has been a shift in models recently to the right, but the official NHC track, if you look at the track line, put on the forecast track line, you can see that it does take it into Florida, but very briefly. It starts to move it up north, but it does stay around for a while, so we're dumping a lot of rain in this scenario and bringing a lot of wind, so it could be a very devastating scenario for Florida. So residents on the east coast of Florida should be preparing and hopefully evacuating and heeding any orders that the state government does post. And as you can see, even after it spends 24 hours over land, it's still going to remain a hurricane due to the proximity to the coast, as well as the fact that Florida is really flat and surrounded by water, so there's not really much mountains or too much land to weaken it any slower or any faster, I mean. Now looking at the forecast discussion, you can see that in 36 hours, NHC has a 130 mile an hour storm, which is a Category 4 officially. It takes up to 140, could be even more than that, but we're not entirely sure yet. That has it near the Florida coast in 96 hours, and that would be on Tuesday. And by Wednesday afternoon, it has it inland, but still a Category 2 even after spending a full day over Florida. And as you can see, life-threatening storm surge and devastating hurricane-force winds are likely. In parts of the northwestern Bahamas as well, hurricane warnings are in effect for that area. And life-threatening storm surge and hurricane-force winds are also likely along portions of the Florida East Coast by early next week. But as you can see, they also say it's too soon to determine when or where the highest surge in winds will occur, since it's forecast to slow down right as it approaches the coast, and then expected to turn northward and maybe even eastward after that. Now, the reason that Dorian's forecast to strengthen so much, and the reason why it's been rapidly intensifying over the last day or so, if you remember, only yesterday it was still only a Category 1 hurricane in the morning, and then it rapidly intensified to Category 2, and now it's a Category 3. Now, the reason for that is because it was impacted by a little bit of shear earlier, past couple of days, which is why it's taken a while to get going, but now it's entering this very favorable environment with wind shear of only 5 to 10 knots, which is perfect for tropical cyclone development and strengthening, and very warm waters in this area as well, just off the Bahamas and off the coast of Florida. We're talking about water temperatures in the upper 80s, near 90 degrees, so that's like bath water. So Dorian's definitely going to be strengthening as it approaches that area. It's going to be further strengthening. Now looking at the intensity models, you can see that most of them now do have it approaching Category 4 strength, even if just briefly, but they do have it at Category 4, and some even take it to the upper levels of Category 4 before weakening it as it makes landfall or approaches land in Florida. And for the tracks, as of the 18Z, this is the most recent, you can see that there's still a little bit of a divide. A lot of the tracks have it going fully inland and then coming into Georgia, moving into Georgia, and then dying out, and then becoming a remnant low. But some have it paralleling the Florida coast right here, as you can see. That's similar to how Hurricane Matthew did back in 2016, just paralleling it, potentially making landfall, or maybe just staying very 20 to 50 miles offshore, which will still be bringing some pretty bad conditions. But if it does stay offshore, then at least the worst of the storm would be avoided. And then some models give it a second landfall up in South Carolina or even up in North Carolina. And there's even some models that still take it completely out to sea, like the this one here, the pink one, the CEMI, takes it, curves it way before it reaches Florida, and takes it completely out to sea. So even that's not out of the question yet. So there's still a little bit of uncertainty as to what exactly is going to happen with this system. Now, if we look at the global models, we have the GFS model. The operational GFS is now the new upgraded version. The old GFS is now the legacy GFS. So if we look at this now, you can see that it has the pressure is a little bit high now and initialized a little low. But if we look at hour 60 and up to hour 72, it's approaching the Florida coast. Then it slows down significantly and even strengthens further up to 954, which would be probably a low-end Category 4. Well, a low-end Category 4 is still a really serious and damaging storm, of course. And then it brings it inland, moves it very slowly. As you can see, it approaches land around hour 96, and then it's still in the Florida around hour 126. So it's going to spend over 24 hours in the state of Florida. So it's going to be dumping a lot of rain in that area. And then whatever's left is going to be hugging the Georgia coast, and then the GFS actually has it coming back out over sea, strengthening it a little bit, and then Dorian then makes second landfall up in North Carolina, and then eventually goes finally out to sea. So, but that's over 200 hours out, so that's over 8 to 9 days away for that. So this storm's definitely going to be sticking around for a while, that's for sure. And you can see the upper level environment, what's going on right now in the upper dynamics, why Dorian's heading towards Florida. The reason there's a ridge right now that's been forming over the Bermuda, around that area, the North Atlantic, and that's been keeping Dorian going west. Otherwise, it would have curved north and out to sea by now, probably. But that ridge is forecast to weaken as soon as it starts to approach Florida. So then there's really nothing to steer it. It's very weak steering currents. There's nothing to move it. There's no trough coming either to pick it up and to bring it out to sea or anything like that. So really it's just going to meander a bit, head north slowly. And then eventually it's going to start to be picked up in like 7 to 8 days. And that's when it's by this feature. And then that's when it's going to be going out to sea. But the European has a different solution. The European, actually, the latest one, 12Z, actually has the system completely missing land. It doesn't have a landfall in Florida. It has it slowing down significantly right before landfall. And then it takes it straight north and west, just off the coast. They might be getting, it's not even certain that they would be getting hurricane force winds in this situation, were to verify. And then it takes it close to South and North Carolina, but then it takes it out to sea. And it even takes it a little close to Cape Cod, but it should be missing that area. However, it could still make landfall in the Canadian Maritimes up in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Those areas might be seeing some effects from the extratropical remnants of Dorian. So again, it's still uncertain whether it's even going to impact land. Well, it's never going to impact land, but whether it's going to actually make a landfall. It could still bring some pretty heavy rain, though, and some pretty strong winds, especially to the Florida area. And hurricane hunters are currently going into the storm to investigate to see what's going on, whether it's further strengthened or not. And they'll probably find higher winds once the next update comes out. And so we'll have to see whether this does actually make a full landfall in Florida. But whether it does or not, it's still going to be a bad storm, and it could be a historic storm, especially if it does make landfall as a Category 4. Since the east coast of Florida hasn't seen a storm of that magnitude since Andrew way back in '92. So a lot of people, this is their first time experiencing something this big. So hopefully anyone who does live in the east coast of Florida, and even areas a little bit further north up in the Georgia coast and the Carolina coast, do take the storm seriously and heed evacuation orders. That's all for today.